Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lost One podcast. Joining me today, I have SamuraiNoodlez, and
Yep.
we are going to talk one of Samurai's absolute favorite topics today. We're going to talk Toonami. Um,
Yes, 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 yes.
mine, 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 mine. Uh, man, just what can we say about Toonami? It is the brand that refuses to die.
Even after it died, it came back and it's going strong.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome, and we're at what, Tom 5 now, right? Or is it
Oh
or is it
geez.
Tom 6?
Let's see. Since they came back, and it's kind of tough, really, to
Yeah,
say, because
well, because they've had
let's
like
see.
Tom like 3.5 and like Tom 4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So, because when Toonami first went away, it was on Tom 4,
yeah,
but then it came back and no one liked the design of Tom 4.
yeah. Tom
So
4
when
is easily the most unpopular version of Tom. Like, it's not even close.
it's Thomas the Choo Choo Train.
Yeah,
Um,
it really
so
is.
when it came back, it was Tom 3 again.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
then so how do we count that? Do we still count 4?
yeah, I still count 4 because I think 4 got I think canonically 4 actually gets destroyed by the intruder.
um,
Because I think they did a comic for, like, I think it was Intruder 2 or Intruder 3. I can't remember which one. It might have been 3. But they did a comic, like a tie-in comic, and like, no, he actually like kills Tom
yeah.
4. So Tom 4 did still exist.
Okay. And I mean
Yeah.
it and it's kind of weird to say like, hey, this cartoon block actually has a storyline.
It
But
does.
yeah, it's it's canon that these these toms, there are multiple different versions of them,
Yeah. And
and
almost
there
all of
are
them
a
end up
lot.
destroyed.
Yes, all the time.
But yeah, like, let's, before we kind of dive like too deep into the Toonami lore, let's talk a bit about like what Toonami means to us. For those that don't know or haven't seen my stream or haven't seen the setup,
Nerdy as fuck.
literally inspired by Toonami. Just want to throw that out there. Like, the whole idea of like being on like a spacecraft going through space, broadcasting a signal. Like, I think I even called the Lost One. I think I named it the ship after, like, I gave it the same class, the Deep Space
Hmm.
Explorer DSE, as Tom's ship. Well, some of his ships anyway. Uh, but so it's like, yeah, I mean, Toonami, obviously huge influence on me. Introduced me to anime, which,
Yes.
saw Dragon. I think it was Dragon Ball Z was the first thing I saw on Toonami. I think Sailor Moon was also on there. Not really
Hmm.
the biggest Sailor Moon fan. Um, and and then, of course, I ended up meeting you a couple years after I discovered Toonami,
Hmm.
and you were a huge Toonami fan, like way more than I was. So it's just like, what can I say? So let's. What about you? What does Toonami mean to you, Samurai? Like, in your own words.
Oh man. So um, and this is gonna be a little more pressing for me, but I was always that kid that was, back then in like the 90s and early 2000s, I was too too white for the black kids kind of thing.
Yeah,
That whole thing.
yeah,
So, um, you know, uh, so I didn't really get to hang out too much with like a lot of people, but the people that I did, we always watched Toonami in the
yeah,
afternoon when we got home. In the years, let's see, Tom 1 was cool. Tom 2 is when it really started to kick off, and that's when it really started to just take over Cartoon Network in general.
yeah, yeah.
Um, we had Toonami, we had Toonami the Rising Sun on Saturdays, the Saturday morning cartoon anime cartoon block that
Yeah,
it had, and the precursor to Adult Swim was Toonami the Midnight Run.
yeah. That is true. Yes.
Hmm. I mean, and for anyone who doesn't know, Toonami and Adult Swim, I mean, it was all produced by William Street. So,
Yeah, same producer, so same kind of
mhm,
brainchild, and
yep.
obviously, I mean, Adult Swim's still around.
hmm
Um,
And even right now, like as their Saturday night midnight anime block, it's Toonami that's on Adult Swim. So I
yeah,
mean, they just kind of merged the two.
yeah, and it's pretty great because again, like as we've kind of talked about, like Toonami's been canceled or moved around, so many times, and
hmm
it's it's so popular that it keeps finding its way back, and it's crazy to think about because again, like you and I talked a lot about like the Toonami lore because I think I've shared this story, maybe not on the pod, but I know I've shared it with you that like where I lived, Cartoon Network would turn into horse racing in like the 90s and the early 2000s. Like this was before we got like national cable, right? Where we only had like local, so it was like we had like the San Diego local stations rather than the LA one. And
I I remember those days.
yeah,
I moved out here, and I remember looking for Cartoon Network,
yeah,
and I was like, "Where is it?"
yeah,
Only to find out that it's only Cartoon Network when we're in school.
yeah. That was the funny part. Is it was like so Toonami would start at what was it like 4 o'clock or was it 3 o'clock? I can't remember. I think it was four.
They switched the times around a few times. So
Yes,
sometimes, I think what summer it would be 3.
yeah. But
Uh,
during
Fall, yeah.
like school, fall, and like through spring, it was like four, right? So the kids
hmm
could come home and then watch it.
hmm
But yeah, so it would start at like 4 o'clock. I remember coming home, and I've told this before. Like I literally got to watch Dragon Ball Z by watching the opening like recap. So it would literally be like last time on Dragon Ball Z, and then something would happen, and then it would like detail the summary of the episode, and then as soon as that finished, it would start the opening, which epic like Dragon Ball rock entrance, and then it would immediately cut off and turn over to horse racing. So
Okay, but honestly, I know that it kind of sucked back then,
yeah,
but Dragon Ball Z, that that show, right? We you could get the entire story just by listening
watching the
to the
recaps, yeah,
yeah, last time on Dragon Ball
Dragon
Z,
Ball
next
Z,
time on Dragon
Dragon
Ball Z,
Ball Z,
last time on
yeah,
Dragon Ball Z. You could get the entire story for it, but
except for
as
the
a
end,
kid,
except for the ending.
yeah.
That was the only part is that because what they would do sometimes is like as they were waiting for like more English dub to come out is they would reset and they would start over.
hmm
So like I'll never forget, like I think it was like the end of the Cell Saga. It was like I didn't get to see what happened, how the Cell Saga finished, how how Cell was defeated. And it was
hmm
like all of a sudden it was like just the opening of Dragon Ball Z, and it was literally back to the Saiyan Saga again. And it was like, oh okay,
Yo, okay, so because we're talking about Dragon Ball Z and how prevalent Toonami was,
yeah.
do you remember Toonami on Kids WB?
Was that the was that the afternoon block or the Saturday morning block?
This would usually be the afternoon block.
Yes, then I do remember it. Yeah.
hmm Um, and I mean, right there, that's how prevalent Toonami was. That
Yeah.
eventually it got on a different channel.
Yeah.
Um,
And then I think Kids WB I think directly like grew out of Toonami. I'm pretty sure.
mm, yeah.
Cuz they ended up doing Kids WB in the afternoons. It was like, they had the Kids WB Saturday morning lineup, but then they also had the afternoon lineup for Kids WB. And I remember because that's where you could watch like Static Shock, Shaolin
hmm
Showdown.
hmm
And this was like from I think Batman Beyond was on there for a little while, like in the
hmm
1990s. So,
I I want to say on Kids WB, the only show that it really brought to Kids WB
uh huh.
was Dragon Ball Z.
Probably because let's be honest, Dragon Ball Z in the 90s was like the anime series. Like
Yes.
the three main ones that I remember growing up with, who got like English dubs and got real popular acclaim, were Yu Yu Hakusho,
hmm
which kind of had like a second and third and fourth life with
hmm
Toonami. Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Those were like the three big ones that I remember that like everybody was talking about it one way or the other. It was like, oh, Sailor Moon fans, oh, Dragon Ball Z fans, oh, Yu Yu Hakusho fans.
But here's the thing though. Uh, you didn't want to watch Dragon Ball Z on Kids WB.
No, because didn't they censor everything?
Not even the censoring. The storyline was all over the place. Let's just show a random episode
Oh,
today, and
that's
then a
right. Yeah.
completely like we could be in the Saiyan Saga on Monday
And then the
and be in
Frieza.
Frieza.
Yeah, Frieza on Thursday. Yeah. Yeah, I do. Okay, yeah, I do remember that. It's all coming back to me now. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was yeah, because that was prior to Kids WB, and I think Kids WB debuted in like I think it was like 1999 or 2000, like that ballpark. So yeah, Toonami was a little before that, I think, on Kids WB.
Uh, Kids WB was a thing before Toonami.
But I think it was only on
Uh,
Saturdays at that point.
um, no, because I remember like Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries being a thing on weekdays before that.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So like yeah, it
okay, but anyway, yeah. So we'll have to do like a deep dive on like Kids WB and all those shows at some point because those are like a lot of like classic cartoons that we grew up with, and some of them have aged really well, others not so much. Um, we'll have to talk about that in detail, but to kind of take this back to Toonami, I mean, again, it's like I would say I would argue that like the defining lineup, like I said, was like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon were like the two ones that I jump out to me.
Mhm.
Didn't they also have wasn't Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
Space Ghost Coast to Coast was more of an Adult Swim thing.
Okay, that
It
was Adult Swim. Cuz
yeah,
well, that was the one where he was doing interviews, right?
yeah.
Yeah, cuz the only
So
reason I remember that is because Weird Al appeared on it, apparently. And I remember seeing that episode and going like, "Wow, that's a bit weird."
so and Space Ghost Coast to Coast actually was um way before Toonami was a thing, and I only remember this because don't ask me why.
Uh-huh.
I was like 4, 5, 6. But sometimes, I'd wake up and I'd turn the TV back on
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
want to watch Cartoon Network and this talk show was on.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But,
Yeah.
hmm
But yeah, okay, so yeah, so Toonami, like again, for sure Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon. Was there
hmm
any other like big Toonami shows at the time when it debuted? Um
uh, so when it debuted, and we're talking Moltar era, right?
yeah, yeah. So so just so you guys know, like Moltar was the first host before Tom.
hmm
And it was before my time. Like I never saw Moltar, not once. Not live anyway. I've seen it in like replays and
hmm
like history videos, like you've showed me over the years, but I never actually saw Moltar. I think I was introduced to Tommy around the time of Tom 2. I think ballpark
Yeah,
because that was around the
yeah.
time when like like I think it was Adelphia was getting big, Adelphia digital cable, like
hmm
and then Time Warner was another one, or I think Adelphi eventually got bought by Time Warner. I can't remember, but either
Yeah.
way, like so I was a bit late to the train, but like early Toonami, I think most people think Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon. What other shows were kind of like Moltar, like really early on
So,
that stand out to you?
so Moltar era. And here's the thing. th- I didn't I didn't watch it enough to be like it stand out, but
Uh huh.
it did kind of introduce um giant robot into American Psyche was Robotech.
Robotech. Okay, I've never seen Robotech.
Yeah, well, Moltar era, and
Yeah.
like I mean, there was also Voltron was in there as well.
Yeah. Okay, I
That one
remember
was
Volt. I
another.
remember Voltron.
Again, this is all Moltar era.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and when we get into later eras of Toonami, there are a few notable big ones that are just like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big series.
Yeah, we'll talk about a couple, but for me, I distinctly remember like Naruto on Toonami Saturday nights, and
hmm
Naruto obviously became like one of the biggest like anime series ever of all time. Um,
The anime series that infuriated a lot of people, and a lot of people thought that it killed Toonami.
believe it.
Believe it.
Yeah, Naruto was a big one. Megas XLR, I think, was also on there.
Yes.
And that one will always be like stuck in my head like forever. Uh,
You want? Okay, so we're talking about like ones that are just stuck in your head.
yeah,
Okay, I mean the the one that introduced America to this whole series of giant robot animes in general,
yeah,
like this
Gundam, right?
whole absolutely
Yeah,
Gundam Wing.
Gundam. Yeah, Gundam Wing.
Specifically, Wing was the first one that came over to America,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then eventually they rolled back to Gundam, like the original Gundam.
yeah. Well, because it was popular, so it's like, well, let's see how
Hmm.
these do. Like, it's kind of like unrelated, but it's like in Super Smash Brothers, they brought over Marth and Roy from Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem at the
Hmm.
time had only been a Japanese series, and they were so popular that they brought Fire Emblem over to the States, and now Fire
Hmm.
Emblem's like one of Nintendo's like largest franchises. Like it's the same concept, and
Yeah,
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah,
and I mean they've had multiple Gundam series on Toonami.
yeah.
Uh, I mean Gundam Wing, G Gundam. Um,
Didn't they have Gundam Unicorn on there as well?
man, you know what? I want to say that they did, but
Yeah,
like that's way. This is way later. Like
yeah. This is like near the end of Toonami's like run, kind of
no, Unicorn would be more. If it was on Toonami, Unicorn would be during the
during the revival.
revival.
Okay.
Yeah,
And, and
because
and we'll talk about that in a little bit, like what happened and why Toonami ended up getting canceled, and we're gonna dive into all of that here. But like, I think case in point though is like we've talked about a lot, as far as like shows. Well, at least I have. For me again, it was Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon were like the two. Like when I think Toonami, like that's what I originally think of. You've mentioned Gundam as one of yours. Do you have any others? Like, because again, we talked like how many Gundam series got brought over because of Gundam's popularity on Toonami.
okay, so here's here's one that I really enjoyed that I'm sad didn't get a season two
Uh huh.
was Dead Man Wonderland. This was after the revival.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Dead Man Wonderland was yeah, surprisingly good. I was kind of shocked why it when it wasn't renewed. Um,
Dead Dead Man Wonderland actually like brought me back into anime after falling out for a while.
yeah,
Um, since since we were talking about Gundam and I'm thinking like giant robots,
yeah.
you also had like IGPX on there.
Oh yes, I actually still have the full series on DVD. Yeah, like IGPX was so good, and that was I
Um,
want to say that was like an American original, right? That wasn't like a
yeah, that was a collaboration between Toonami and Production IG.
yeah, that's what it was. So yeah, because I'm like
Hmm.
I didn't think it had originated in Japan. I think that was a US
Hmm.
project, and it proved to be really popular. So
And
high
it's kind
speed
of
giant
funny.
robots.
It's kind of funny because I remember after Toonami came back, Tumblr was still big,
Yeah.
and I remember they had a Tumblr, and they would do like FAQs, and I guess either it was just a joke to keep asking this,
Uh huh.
or people legitimately didn't know that Toonami had worked on an anime
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
so people would keep asking uh, if you make an anime, what would it be about?
Yeah. And they keep
And they would
answering IGPX, right?
without ever saying IGPX, they would basically tell the plot
Yeah, of IGPX, like the
of
concept.
IGPX.
Yeah.
Yeah, they 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 would say, oh, we would make it about a team who you know has their differences, but in the end, they get along and end up taking the goal.
Yeah, this
Just
like
like
it's
a very
and they're
vague.
they're racing like giant robots or something like that. Like yeah,
Yeah, they
they would
so
describe IGPX
they
like
would describe IGPX,
yeah.
which I don't know how many people know that IGPX actually had a little mini series before it turned into their big series.
Yeah, yeah, I do remember that. I think it debuted as a miniseries, and it was like,
Hmm.
wasn't it like shorts that aired like in between like Toonami's regular programming?
Yes,
Yeah,
there were
okay, I
little
remember that.
five. They were little 5 minute shorts, and it was completely different than the IGPX that we got as like a full series.
Yeah. Which
It
is often
was.
the case. Like a lot of pilots, like they'll have some similarities. Like I don't know if you've seen like Fairly Odd Parents' cartoons origination.
Uh, mm-mm.
Like
I haven't
yes,
seen their original one.
yeah. So a lot of like popular cartoons initially started off as shorts. They debuted on Cartoon Network's Cartoons, and one of them was Fairly Odd Parents. And it's like they had a lot of stuff like in common. Like Timmy and Cosmo and
Hmm.
Wanda were largely like their designs were largely the same, but it's the concept of like, oh, getting fairy godparents, and it debuted on Cartoon Network, and of course Fairly Odd Parents would go on to be one of like Nickelodeon's like most popular cartoons.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
like that's
and
what happens in a lot of stages is you initially present a concept as a pilot, so to speak, and with 5 minute episodes, I mean that's basically one pilot episode, right? 25 minutes.
mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it was basically a pilot, and I guess it proved to be popular enough. They made a full series out of it.
You just reminded me that Seth MacFarlane debuted a short that eventually did become Family Guy.
Yeah, yeah. He Seth MacFarlane was originally a writer on Cartoons. Yeah,
Uh,
Butch
what a,
Hartman was another one.
what a cartoon show! That's the show that the little short that his short
Oh
premiered
yeah,
on.
yeah. It wasn't cartoon. At that point. It was, yeah. You're right. It was
Mm,
what a cartoon show, and I think that
mm,
that idea, I think Cartoons was either a direct successor or a spiritual successor to that,
mm.
because a lot of Cartoon was like small shorts that would eventually turn into like actual series. But
Yeah,
we'll have to dive into that again another time. But
yeah, exactly.
IGPX, yeah, originally debuted as 5 minute shorts, and I think they aired either before or after like a Toonami show, like
Hmm.
what was airing. So like Dragon Ball
And I
Z, for
mean,
example. And then there would be like at the end, it would be like a 5 minute short on IGPX.
and then not only, I mean, that wasn't the only one that had a little mini series before it. If
Yeah,
you
they had a couple of them, right? IGPX is just the one I remember off the top of my head, but
Star Wars,
oh, did they? Was that the lead up to like the Star Wars animated movie starring Mace Windu? That was the shorts,
uh,
right?
yeah,
Where he's like
that was
fighting in the snow.
there was the animated shorts, Star Wars,
I think it was
the
Star Wars
Clone
Clone
Wars.
Wars. Yeah, I think it was Star Wars
Yeah,
Clone Wars. It was the first Clone Wars series. Yeah, and it was like a
hmm
series of
it
like
was.
5 minute shorts that aired in parts on Toonami,
Hmm.
and they combined make like one movie. So
Yep,
yeah, yeah, I
yep.
remember that, and had a very distinct
So
art style that they didn't end up going with.
yeah, no, they ended up doing the whole 3D computer animated style,
Yeah,
which fine. I dig it.
I
I
mean,
still need to watch that show, honestly.
so I'll just give you a heads up about that. It's 7 seasons long, I think. I think
I
they
know.
just added 8. Um, the episodes are not told chronologically.
Hmm.
That's what I recommend going in and stick with it. The first
Yeah,
season, it's finding its footing, but it gets like by the second and third season, it quickly is like it's one of the best Star Wars projects to ever come out, honestly. And it
and
ties
then
into like
I
so much more. Rebels,
yeah, I was about to say, and
the
then I know
Bad
it breaks off
Batch,
into like different things.
yeah. And then it's actually still having influence on like the live action stuff they're getting now, like Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Book of Boba
Hmm.
Fett. I haven't seen Andor yet, but I imagine there's some connections there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, fun fact: Star Wars short on Toonami. Again,
Hmm.
like if you just want to know like how big Toonami was at like its peak, Star Wars wanted to air on it. Like they had Star Wars
Yeah.
projects airing on it. That I think
Hmm.
says enough right there. But
And I mean, like, I could just rattle off the whole list of shows.
mhm.
Like, I mean, you have the Big O,
Oh, I
which
remember the Big O, another giant robot.
no, yeah, another giant robot. Blue Submarine 6.
Okay, I don't remember Blue Submarine 6.
it was a really short anime, and it was pretty good. It didn't last that long,
Okay,
but
that might
Blue
explain why I
Sub.
don't remember it.
Mm-hmm. It had a very short run.
Yeah.
Blue Sub 6. Um, my all time favorite anime, and I put this quite literally just just above. Like if it was a space race between this anime and Cowboy Bebop, this one literally beats it by just like milliseconds.
Oh yeah.
Um, Outlaw Star.
There you go. I'm like,
Eh,
I think I know. Like, I was like, it's either Cowboy Bebop or Outlaw Star. Then when you said it beats Cowboy Bebop, I'm like, oh, it's Outlaw Star. It's gotta be.
Yeah. It's honestly, and I know I can I can hear the people in the chat or
In the
in the comments
comments,
like,
yeah,
what the
yeah,
how could you like that more? Now, if you know me, I like a little bit more lighthearted stuff,
yeah.
and
And Cowboy Bebop gets dark. Like
Cowboy Bebop does get pretty heavy.
they have some dark episodes in there,
Hmm.
and Outlaw Star is definitely a little more lighthearted for sure.
Hmm.
Again, both amazing series. I'm not gonna knock either
Oh
one.
yeah.
I personally prefer Cowboy Bebop, but again,
Yeah.
like that's I'm not gonna hate on Outlaw Star. Like
Outlaw Star was just fun.
yeah,
It was like a great show to just watch.
yeah,
It's like it's fun all the way through.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've talked a lot about like Toonami's like early stuff. Obviously with Moltar, and they eventually
Hmm.
became what would be a mainstream on Cartoon Network. Whether it was on the weekdays or on Saturdays, and
Oh,
Saturday
absolutely
morning, Saturday
dominated Cartoon
evening,
Network.
and we'll talk. Let's talk Tom a little bit. So Moltar, obviously he didn't last very long as a host. I think
Mhm.
he was there for what, like, less than 2 years, right? Um,
Yeah. So Toonami debuted in March 17th, 1997.
7. Okay, I thought it was 6,
Um,
but yeah, seven
uh,
lines up the time pretty well. Um,
yeah, and it showed with Moltar.
yeah, and
Started out with Moltar.
he was the host for at least a year, I think.
Hmm.
I think he made it a
Hmm.
year. And then kind of without explanation, right? I don't think there was ever like a story given for why they switched to Tom, right?
No, they didn't really they didn't really give an explanation, but I mean there was still some elements that kind of showed that they were going to be switching over, like leaving Cartoon Planet is
Yeah,
that Moltar where Moltar was, leaving Cartoon Planet, and like you could see it in like some of the promos, like the shooting off of the Clyde bot into space.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So like
uh
they were teasing it for a while, which would
yeah.
become a kind of a recurring theme with Toonami, is that
Hmm.
they would tease a lot of stuff upcoming and do like their own little shorts. We name dropped the Intruder, for example, and yes, they made
Yeah.
3 of those, all with the same intruder, same enemy.
Which they call them ties.
Yeah,
Total immersion events.
yes, yeah, and it's just so Tom comes in, and
Hmm.
he's voiced by your all-time favorite voice
What? What?
actor.
No, hold on, hold on, hold on. No, not the first one.
Oh, not initially,
Believe it,
right?
believe it or not, yeah, no, the first one was not hosted by that voice actor.
Yeah, that was
It was
Tom 2,
actually,
right? That was Tom 2.
yeah,
Okay,
Tom too. They
okay.
brought in him.
Because
The
again,
first
I
one,
started with Tom 2, so apologies. I
yeah.
just thought he had always done it, so I'm learning something new here, everybody. But yeah, please continue. Who was the voice of Tom 1?
So the short little fat one that had like a big gut and everything that ended up
Yeah,
getting gobbled up by the intruder was
yeah.
actually voiced by Funimation's own Krillin, basically. It
Oh,
was Sunny Straight.
Sunny Straight. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty funny. Yeah, and as we kind of mentioned, Tom 1 unfortunately had a unfortunate run with the intruder.
Yeah.
And that's what led to Tom 2, who
Mm-hmm.
most of us know. That's where like Tom's kind of like iconic design originated from. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but with Tom 1, like, he wasn't around for super long either, I don't think, right? He.
No, no. Let's see. I want to say he was there 1999 to 2002 or 2000 to 2002.
Yeah, it was fairly short because like Moltar, like I said, was only there for like a year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and then Tom 1 was there for like another like maybe 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tom 2 I think had a little bit longer than Tom 3 I think was like the longest running
Actually,
host.
Tom. Let's see. Tom 2, 2002 to 2004.
Yeah, and then Tom 3 was basically there until 2000 what like 7 or 8, right?
Want to say.
Cuz cuz I think Toonami died in 2009.
I want to say it was like 2007.
Okay.
And yeah, then we got Tom. Then we
Tom
got Tom
4,
4
Tom,
after that.
Thomas the Tank Engine, as you referred to him
um,
earlier.
well,
You're not
and
wrong.
that
You're not wrong.
yeah, no, he looks like him,
He
and it's kind of
does.
funny because you know, as we're going through this chronologically, that's this Tom is where everything kind of like this was where it ended
Yeah.
for a short time.
For a couple of
Um,
years, because I think, and we'll get into this in the future, but I think they came back because of an April Fool's joke.
oh yeah, that was great.
So yeah, we'll discuss that in a minute. But yeah, Tom 4. Yeah, I think it was Tom 3 who has the longest tenure as a host, and then
Mhm.
including his tenure, if you continue his tenure when the reboot came back.
Yeah.
Also, I do apologize. My roommate's back home. Actually, relatively early for him, so my dog is barking. But yeah. So without kind of further ado, like we said, we've been through like a lot of hosts. So Tom 1,
Mhm.
obviously voiced by not voiced by your favorite actor, although one of your favorites though, still an iconic
Yes.
actor in their own right.
Love Sunny Straight.
Yeah, Sonny Strait.
Mhm.
And we have your boy comes in, and he's been the voice of Tom pretty much ever since.
He's still the voice of Tom.
Yeah, Stephen J. Bloom.
Yep.
And it's kind of funny because Stephen J. Bloom also has roles in a lot of like significant like anime and cartoons that Toonami introduced. So
a, yeah, he has a lot of roles in the shows that
yeah,
says, and it's kind of funny because
yeah,
IGPX he was in it.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Like, and it's just it's funny because again, like we've talked about this a lot, and we'll have to do like a Stephen J. Bloom episode at some point, and just talk about his long career and his
Oh
impact
yeah.
in the industry, not just in anime, but in animation in general and voice acting. But
It's kind of funny. If it was Sunrise, it most likely had Stephen Bloom in it.
yeah, and we name drop Big O.
Mm-hmm.
He was in that.
Roger Smith.
Yeah,
Sunrise.
yep. He was in Naruto, which I name dropped earlier. He
Yeah.
played two characters, Orochimaru
Yep.
and Zabuza, both villains.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he, God, like pretty much like he's one of those voice actors that's like if he's not in it, it's more surprising that he's not in it than if he is.
Mm-hmm.
And he has
He
a
was in
very
Rurouni
distinctive
Kenshin.
voice. Yeah, he's in Rurouni Kenshin. Was he in Samurai Champloo?
Yes, he was
Yeah,
Mugen.
Mugen, that's right. I'm pretty sure he was in Samurai Champloo. He was Wolverine and Wolverine the X-Men, which was not Toonami, that was Nickelodeon,
Mm,
but
yeah.
still like he's been in a ton of video games. And of
It,
course, he's been Tom for at this point over 2 decades. Like,
it's really funny because um do you understand how the name Toonami came about?
I know it was a combination of tune, like cartoon, and tsunami.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But I mean just like the concept of it.
No, I don't know that story. I know that's what it's like a combination of. That's what the name
Yeah.
originates from, but I don't know why. Enlighten me, please.
So Mike Lazo
Mm-hmm.
uh you know, like you guys probably know him as the voice of Zorak,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he was also like executive producer at like William Street.
yeah. So really,
Um,
really big in like the Cartoon Network. A lot of Cartoon Network projects. Again, Toonami and Adult Swim.
mhm.
He's pretty much been a heavy hitter in Cartoon Network for basically the last like 25 years or so.
He,
Um, he's a titan
yeah.
in the industry,
Mhm.
to say the
Uh,
least.
mm, mm. May his soul rest in peace. He did.
Yes.
He passed away. I want to say about like 10 years ago now.
Yeah, but what
It
I'm
doesn't
saying
feel
is
that
that
long.
his
Yeah.
influence is still felt today,
Oh
even
yeah.
like
Oh
20,
yeah.
25 years later. That's what I meant. But you're right. Like, yeah,
So
he did pass away. He's no longer with us.
so he wanted an afternoon cartoon block, right?
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
the one caveat that he wanted was that he didn't want it to have Toon in its name.
You know, I had a conversation last week about why writers feel the need to change stuff that works, and here we are again. Time is a circle.
He did not want to have Toon in its name. So after so much like back and forth through all these names that they went through,
Yeah.
eventually they landed on Toonami, and it was just kind of like, but it worked, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're literally talking like we're 30 minutes into the podcast, 35 minutes into the podcast, and we've literally been talking about like how Toonami will not die because it's just so
Yeah.
popular. So it worked, but yeah. So there's a fun little sidebar about the origin of the Toonami name. Thank you for that, Samurai. Um, but yeah, you know, like we don't need to necessarily do a deep dive, but like Toonami was originally on like afternoons. You know, it was an afternoon cartoon block. As we mentioned, it did eventually take over Saturday morning as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, you know, at some point, I don't remember exactly when, but I want to say it was like early to mid 2000s. Toonami, I don't want to say its popularity started to wane, but it was kind of like moved away from uh it was moved away from like afternoons, and it was put Saturday evenings, and it was there for a long time.
It was said
um
that the action block was a little bit more um too actiony for what they wanted
yeah, like because it
to
was more like aimed
show
at
on a daily.
it was more like aimed at teens, I think. Like Toonami
Mm-hmm.
gradually went from like we have cartoons to this is a
Mm-hmm.
teenage block, and then they decided I think Saturday was a bit better for that,
Mm-hmm.
and so it ended up moving to Saturday evenings instead. And it had like I think it was from like 8 until like I want to say it was like 8 till 11 or 8 till midnight on that
Mm-hmm.
block, and it was there for a long time. And then Adult Swim would
Uh,
take over.
See, and this is kind of where I get a little fuzzy on it because at this point I had switched away from Adelphia.
Yeah,
Um, but I had switched away from Adelphia going to DirecTV. So
yeah, yeah,
when you're talking about times, I'm just like mine's was 3 hours ahead.
yeah.
So
Because at the time, DirecTV's Cartoon Network, they actually I think for some channels they had two. They had like the West Coast one and then the East Coast one.
yeah, but Cartoon Network was not one of them at the time.
Yeah, so Cartoon Network was just East Coast time, and we're on the West Coast. For those that don't know, like we're in the West Coast of the United States. So he'd be watching like Toonami on like Saturday at like 5 p.m.
Yeah,
when it would normally start at like 8 p.m. our time. And by the
yeah,
time it was over, it would be like 8 p.m. or, you know, or 9.
yeah, and then I'd be going into Adult Swim territory,
Yeah. So,
which still cool.
yeah. And, you know, but unfortunately, as we kind of talked about, is that, you know, Toonami unfortunately really started to underperform on Saturday nights. Cartoon Network was also making a lot of changes at the time where they were moving away from cartoons. That there was this was during like the infamous moment where they had a guy at Cartoon Network, or it was around the same time anyway, where they had a guy at Cartoon Network who didn't want cartoons on on Cartoon Network. So they were trying these experiments like kind of Nickelodeon had done with more like live action, you know, shows. And as we all know, that really didn't work out for them. And I
Destroy, build, destroy with Andrew WK.
yeah, just lots of weird stuff. And
Hmm.
that guy eventually I think ended up getting canned because I think like Adventure Time and The Amazing World of Gumball and basically a new
Gumball's
like
still really good.
generation of cartoons came out like in the early I want to say like the 2010s. So but
Hmm.
yeah, they ultimately decided to pull the plug on Toonami. And this was again with Tom Four, and that design was like universally ridiculed.
Yeah.
They also introduced like two additional characters, like Sarah, who'd been like the longtime like AI companion of Tom, was like nowhere to be seen.
Hmm.
Um, and they weren't on a ship anymore, which they had basically been doing since Moltar had hosted. They
Hmm.
were now like on a planet, and just a lot of changes, a lot of the design, and it wasn't popular among fans. And as we said, Tom Four is kind of the black sheep of the Tom slash Moltar family.
I
Uh,
mean, I feel like I've accepted him now. Now that there's lore behind it,
yeah, yeah,
like they retconned it to a point where I'll get into it a little bit later. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, again, I'm not a hater. I'm just stating facts that like the Toonami fan base, which had been really rabid in their support at this point for like 15 years almost, was done.
hmm
And I think it was 12 years, but they were tired of it. And then we've also talked about like the English dub for Naruto, as you kind of alluded to, was not good. Like it wasn't. It got better, but
yeah.
Naruto was on Toonami, and so
Well, they were banking on that whole thing of like what Dragon Ball Z did,
yeah. And
and
because what Naruto was on there, I think Bleach was airing on Adult Swim because I think Bleach was a little bit
it's
more.
Adult Swim, yeah.
Yeah, but they had several like anime series they experimented with on in Toonami. Megas XLR was on there at one
Oh,
point,
dude,
and
I guess XLR was great.
Megas did well for a while, but I think it eventually got canceled after what 2 or 3 seasons, right?
Oh man, yeah,
I think it was
about two
two,
two seasons, yeah.
but
Uh, Funny story: the creator is not legally allowed to sell DVDs or anything of Megas XLR.
yeah, because the rights are
Uh,
up for grabs, right? Like there's a
and
rights battle.
yeah, he's not legally allowed to sell it, so he would sell his autograph
That just happened to be on a
on
DVD.
on it that happened to be on a DVD.
That's a clever loophole. But yeah, it's so like Toonami had unfortunately just a I don't even remember a lot of like the Saturday night shows. I know they tried bo-bobo for a while, bo-bobo-bo-bobo-bo-bo. And
Yeah,
that
it's
I
Bebos.
I personally enjoyed that cartoon, that anime, but I also acknowledge that that entire series is so based on Japanese humor. I'm not surprised it didn't translate super well.
I did not at the time. I didn't understand what it was.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was supposed to be a parody. I just thought it was all like
yeah.
stupid,
The
bad.
the whole thing, it was like the English dub was less parody and more just randomness. But
Hmm.
the actual like series is a parody on other manga and anime series, and it translates a lot better in Japan than it does here because there's so many like Japanese cultural references and things they're making fun of, and they tried to translate it here, but when you have just too many different cultures, especially at the time, like
Which, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, if you have a comedy in one language and you want to translate it, most of those jokes aren't going to make it
yeah,
into the translation.
yeah,
We don't have the same humor.
no,
There's cultural differences.
there's cultural, there's language limitations. Like one of
That's
the
why that's why Shin-chan is so different
yeah,
from its Japanese counterpart.
yeah, and with Bobobo, I think they would have been a bit better trying to go in that direction, but
Hmm.
they didn't, and that it was a decision they made, and I thought it was fine for what it was. But I like I said, I still enjoyed it at the time. That was the type of like silly chaos I enjoyed, but I get why people did not. And they tried like a whole bunch of like series, and unfortunately, just yet at some point they just decided we're gonna pull the plug on Toonami.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
What do you think is the shortest series on Toonami?
The shortest one?
Yeah, series. Like the like not I should reframe this because this show was canceled. The one that I'm thinking was canceled
Hmm. Okay.
after a
So
set
like,
of number of episodes.
yeah. So basically, you think it's like the shortest runtime on
Yeah, the
Toonami.
shortest
Not
run
necessarily the
on
shortest series, but the one
Yeah.
that lasted the least.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. What is it?
Ulin Warriors.
Yeah, that's why I don't know. I just legitimately have never seen it.
And if you watch a anything from it,
Uh huh.
you'll be like, yeah, I could see why
Yeah.
this was short. It was on Toonami on the Saturday block. It lasted 2 weeks,
There you go. Yeah.
2 episodes.
What I was going to say real quick is because I just want to tie this in is part of the reason why like the Naruto English dub struggled so much is because Naruto has like a verbal tick in the
Hmm.
series. Date bayo. Rather than just cut that out, they chose to put believe it at the end of every sentence. So they still use the animation where he's still talking rather than just cut the frame and stop him talking. They replaced it
Hmm.
with believe it. So after every sentence, I can do this, believe it. You can do this, believe it. Watch me do this, believe it. And it just got so old. And it sucks because Naruto has a really, really good English cast. But
Hmm.
it's just, again, that decision is kind of like with Bobobo, it didn't help the series. And again, they eventually phased that out, and they did fix that, which was good, and Naruto got a lot better. But my
I
gosh, there were lots of decisions for shows in like the mid 2000s Toonami that did not help Toonami at all.
so I heard that with dubbing, big name companies are kind of like their hands are tied when it comes to what they can and can't do.
Yes, so
And one of the major things that they can't do is like edit edit the like cuts in
yeah,
between.
yeah. Well, the idea was so for those that don't know, basically when you agree to dub a series, like when a Japanese animation company that owns the footage and the manga author and all that sign off on it, they usually put restrictions on what you can and can't do.
Hmm.
Most of the time it's to protect the story integrity and to make sure that
Hmm.
like you don't cut anything accidental that's important to the story or key. But in this case, what happened is because they couldn't edit the footage at all, they
Hmm.
were stuck with this mouth flap and they had to work around that. And then eventually what
Yep.
ended up happening was when, wasn't as big of a hit as like Dragon Ball Z was in the United States, where they had a bit more creative freedom because
Hmm.
the agreements weren't quite as
I
strict.
mean, anime was just so new.
Yeah, well, again, 4Kids was able to butcher the hell out of I don't know how many series. So that should tell you everything you need to know about the agreements then. But like by the time like Naruto and other popular series were getting licensed because manga sales were starting to take off, English
Hmm.
versions of manga sales were starting to take off in the United States. So naturally, you want to try to bring anime over. Japan is surprisingly conservative, especially in their business practices. So of course they're going to
Hmm.
be very restrictive on what they can and can't do with their series. And in some cases for good reason. Like we've obviously seen what a lot of like American remake dubs do here in the United States, and they don't do well. But
Yeah.
in this case, it was actually so much that the restrictions were actually causing the product to suffer. And unfortunately, Toonami, which was kind of the anime like channel at the
It
time, this
was
was like before a Funimation channel existed, and before
before
streaming.
Netflix.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Toonami, unfortunately, because of these restrictions, took some of the blame for that, and ratings went down because the dubs were. I don't want to say terrible because like there's a lot of work that goes into dubs, and again, like Samurai said,
That's
their hands were
yeah.
tied, but they were not as good as they would later become.
Hmm.
I think that's a fair statement. And Toonami unfortunately took the X, combined with like other stuff. We mentioned the dude who didn't want cartoons on Cartoon Network for some fucking reason. Um, there were a lot of factors, but yeah, Toonami got axed. I believe it was in 2009. There was no announcement. It
Dude,
was
it was so out of the blue.
it was literally like an animation of Tom and his two companions, whose name I can't remember, and Stephen J. Bloom as Tom giving one of his monologues, and just, it's been great, time, but all good things must come to an end. They pack up, they shut down the station, and he's like, see you next time, bang, and or something like that, and it was over. And I will never forget. I called you like that night
Yeah.
and was like, "What the fuck? Did you hear that Toonami just got canceled?"
I was over at a friend's house and we were playing video games.
Yeah.
And I just remember, oh hey, let's check out Toonami. And the last show before they did that was Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was just like, what just happened?
Yeah. And I think, I called you literally, I think, like a couple minutes later, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And
Didn't know this was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, oh my dude, oh man.
So anyway, there was online petitions, for Cartoon Network to bring back Toonami. Hashtags on Twitter, because Twitter was becoming a thing at that time. 2009 was right around the time of the rise of Twitter. Tumblr was still big. This was before they killed the entire website by banning porn. And now they've since allowed porn back on. And I don't know if you heard, but did you know you're going to be able to start streaming on Tumblr? Did you hear that?
Oh, so they're trying to be relevant again.
Yeah, they're actually trying to like build Tumblr back up, and I'm all for it. But that's another story.
You know what? Actually, I think now is a good time to do that, especially with the Twitter debacle.
With Twitter and with Twitch both shooting themselves in the foot, like, yeah, I think this is absolutely the best time they could have done it. So we'll see if it succeeds, but I'm rooting for them personally. But and then we all know that Adult Swim and Cartoon Network love to do their April Fool's pranks.
Oh, dude, Adult Swim, one of my. Considering the topic that we're talking about, I'm going to now say this is my second favorite prank.
There
was a point where Adult Swim was playing Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, they played, and didn't they like dedicate a whole night to Saved by the Bell? April Fool's night?
So, yeah, exactly. So someone said, if you're going to play Saved by the Bell, then you shouldn't be called Adult Swim. You should be called Late Night Crappy 1980s TV Show.
I remember this. Didn't they change the all the bumps and everything to that?
Yeah. So April Fool's comes by and it's a marathon
of Saved by the Bell. Yeah.
And corner in the brackets, the famous AS brackets, it says Late Night Crappy 1980s TV Show.
The guys in Adult Swim have no chill. They got no chill, and I love them for it.
Dude, Jason Mark was awesome.
So there's someone we haven't even talked about here, and we'll have to come back. But remind me to talk about the Toonami bumps before we.
Oh, dude.
We end this.
Yes.
We have to talk about that, but
of course.
We've kind of been all over the place, but when was it? Was it 2012 or 2014 that they brought Toonami back as a prank? I'm pretty sure it was in that ballpark, because I think I was either in college or just about to wrap. I just finished college. I can't remember exactly when.
Say 2012 was a good. It was off for like a good 4 years.
I think it was like 3. I think it was like 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So I'm thinking it was like 2012, but.
So let's see.
It might have been 2014.
Let's see. The adults. Yeah, 2012.
2012. Okay, I was right. Cool.
Yeah.
So 2012, they do another April Fool's prank, and they literally just brought back Toonami for one night only. And they played like a whole bunch of like classic Toonami like programs. I think they had Dragon Ball Z on there. I think Sailor Moon was on there.
So the episodes were specifically chosen by the
Yeah,
highest rated episode.
yeah. So it was like the best of Toonami, basically. Like
Mm-hmm.
their best stuff. Their and it went on from like I don't remember what time it was, but it was I think it was like when Adult Swim started, so it was like 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock at this point.
Yeah.
And it went till
Mm-hmm.
like 4 or 5 in the morning.
But the way that they started it is so for the time that Toonami was off, Adult Swim, whenever their April Fool's pranks would come on, they would routinely just play The Room.
Yeah,
Uh, Tommy Wiseau's failed movie, but has like a cult classic,
based
cult.
off the book, I think.
You're tearing me apart,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Um,
Oh, hi, Mark.
it's one of the it's like to me that's like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or like Clue,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's so bad it's good
Yeah.
type movie. Like that's just my personal take. Don't come at me, Clue fans. I don't hate Tim Curry. He steals every scene in that movie. But like, stay on topic here. If you want to come at me,
So,
we can talk about it on my stream. But uh
so, they have been playing that like every April Fools,
yeah, with the
and
exception of
so
the year they did the whole Saved by the Bell marathon.
oh no, that one. So that this whole thing was after that
Oh, that was
because
after.
the
Okay.
Saved by the Bell marathon was like I think their 2008 prank,
Okay.
something like that. But so on this day of April Fools, there was no reason to believe that they were
They were just
going
gonna
to
play
do
the
the
room
same
again.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
they
it
were
was
just going to
like
play the room.
because like I said, at this point that's all they had really done. Like it was just they
And,
played the room and like maybe a couple other things, but like it was always the room was always in it.
and in fact, like that's how they started it, and we were
Yeah.
just like, all right, we're gonna watch the room, and then all of a sudden the screen gets all like
It like
like
it
the
stat
little
like
wiggly.
yeah like it was like an interruption, like a transmission interruption.
Yeah,
Um.
and it backs out, and it's a familiar screen from
Yeah.
a ship that we all know and love,
Yeah.
and pulls out, and it says, "Hey, this is Tom reporting in for April Fools." And
Yeah.
I was just like, "What?"
And specifically, it was Tom 3. So
Mm-hmm.
it was Tom 3, not Tom 4. So
Mm-hmm.
they Tom 3, as I mentioned, was like the longest host of Toonami, and he was arguably the most popular iteration at this point, arguably. And so they brought him back, and they literally and Sarah was there,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it was yeah again same Toonami screen, same Toonami channel, and they basically played a best of Toonami. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that ended up being like one of Adult Swim's like highest rated April Fool specials of all time. It might have been passed, but at
Uh,
the time, I think it was the most watched one, and it was certainly the most talked about.
dude, I remember contacting everyone. Dude, watch Adult Swim tonight
You
without ever
you
saying what it
you
was.
called me on the phone, and I was in college at the time, by the way, when this happened, and you were just like, drop whatever the fuck you're doing, watch it. And I did.
Watch Adult Swim tonight.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And I did. And it was incredible. And
Yeah.
they ended up bringing
Yeah.
Toonami back. And
Yeah.
Toonami has quite literally been back ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, they've gone through several more iterations. They've done some more ties. I think they did the Intruder 3. We're now, I think, up to Tom 5 or Tom 6. I can't remember. I think it's Tom 5, but we might be at Tom 6 now.
Dude, there's so many iterations. They've had so many different ships. In fact, I want to say the recent tie-in uh kind of brought back like the old school Absolution.
Yeah, it did. And the way they explained it was like a future version that was rebuilt, but like sent back in
Mm-hmm.
time or something like that.
Yeah,
Like I think
it
that
was
was
like
the lore.
stuck in a time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So
was future but past.
yeah.
It was time locked.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, and again, we talked about how Adult Swim and Toonami were both produced by the same producer,
Mm-hmm.
William Street. So Toonami basically has since taken over the Adult Swim block on Saturdays,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just it's back and it's better than ever. And it's just it's hard to really look at it and go like, man, what a legacy, to still be around. Stephen J. Bloom, if you follow him on Twitter, I don't know how active he is now, but like with all the Twitter crap, but like every Saturday he would reliably, like for the last several years since they brought back Toonami, has been like promoting it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell he really is passionate about it. He has a deep love of Toonami, and again, like I've talked about, like it literally influenced my entire like design, my entire aesthetic for like my online presence.
Mm-hmm.
And Samurai knows I'm not a sci-fi dude. I'm a fantasy nerd. Like I love sci-fi, but I'm fantasy. If you give me the two, I'm gonna pick fantasy every time. Like it's not even close. It's just my preference. Toonami is that impactful, and the fact that here we are in 2022, almost 2023, and Toonami is still around, which
Mm-hmm.
debuted in '97, has been canceled and came back. I think that's a testament to just how incredible and influential it is. And we haven't even talked about
Dude.
what really made Toonami stand out, and still does, I think, to this day,
Mm-hmm.
the Toonami bumps.
Oh man, there's so many good ones that I could recite.
Yeah.
I I will make this whole planet suffer.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Then there's the one
man.
for Big O. Um, in a world, like 20 years ago, a disaster struck the city, like
Oh, dude.
leaving all of its inhabitants with amnesia.
No, and here's the thing. Like, there was so many things that they considered that they still consider today.
Yeah.
Music
Yeah.
choice
Yep.
is a huge one. Um, we were talking about the IGPX
Yeah.
earlier.
Oh yeah. IGPX had an awesome Toonami bump.
There, there's two different versions of the English dubbed of IGPX, and that's because if you get the just the straight regular dub from from Japan and everything, it has their music. It has
Yeah.
it's still the anime, but it has a different feel than if you got the Toonami version because
Mm-hmm.
back then Toonami was they got their music from Ninja Tune.
Yes. Yes. Ninja Tune, which we'll have to talk about if we ever do like a deep dive on like music. We'll have to talk
Hmm.
about that at some point. They deserve some major recognition for just how iconic their music has been over the years.
Their music has shaped. Actually, I'm not. I'm not even gonna just chalk it up to Ninja Tune. I'm just gonna say this as William Street because
Yeah.
William Street kind of like handpicked these tracks
These tracks
because
and yeah, music
I like the
choices.
songs from Adult Swim. I like the songs from Toonami.
Hmm.
But since we're talking straight Toonami right now, dude, oh man,
I mean,
I
it's influenced a lot of like your musical choice and like even your style
absolutely.
design. Like for those that don't know, Samurai is very much into videography. He's a big proponent of like media
Hmm.
and editing. He loves it, and
Oh yeah.
he actually, for those that don't know, actually produced and edited my trailer, my channel trailer. So, Samurai, thanks for that.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of like his style and his passion has been influenced by that. And again, we've known each other, Samurai, we've known each other now for about 20 years, and it's pretty crazy to think
Damn, dude,
like,
20 years? You're
yeah,
fucking old.
and look who's talking, you're a year older than me. But it's funny because at the time, we haven't even talked about the fan project you were involved in. Like
Oh.
we haven't even talked about the fan project. Like there's so much we haven't covered, and we're here like in about an hour, so I do kind of want to wrap up. But
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many things. The AMVs that they had were
Mm-hmm.
great. In fact, like my favorite AMV that they had was Dreams, and the continuation to that.
Yeah.
I,
Speaking of AMVs, Interstellar 5555.
mm-hmm.
Right. The
The first
Daft Punk's entire like, I think it's
no, the
Discovery,
first
right?
no, the first four videos showed on their music video night.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it wasn't out yet,
Yeah. But
so it was just the first four.
yeah. But still, I mean, Interstellar 5555.
Mm-hmm.
Five. Right. Four fives.
Yeah, there's five. There's four fives.
Yeah. There's four. So okay, I was right. Hopefully. Anyway, yeah. But again, it's like, they were partnered with like Daft Punk. They got to air that. I remember that was like a big thing they showed a lot of
Huge one.
times.
The Gorillas.
Yeah, the Gorillas. All these like, really just great sounds. Let's just put it that way. And then of course you had the iconic voice for a lot of those like early bumps. And
dang.
Peter Cullens.
Peter Cullen.
Yeah, the Peter Cullen, who most of you would probably know now as the voice of Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime, dude.
And he just nailed a lot of these bumps. Like he did the Big O one I was referring to earlier that stands out in my head. He did one for He-Man.
He did. Dude,
he did so many, and they're insane.
I'm gonna put it this way. Peter Cullen did such a good job. He made Hamtaro sound badass.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. If you have not heard it, Hamtaro, do a Peter Cullen Hamtaro bump or promo.
Yes.
You will not regret it.
With mad skills. I was like, dude, what?
Am
I about to watch an anime about a hamster?
Yes. And we did.
Yeah,
we did.
I loved Hamtaro.
Dude, Hamtaro, unironically great. Though to me, where I really the Hamtaro thing that stands up to me was, do you remember the AMV Hell series?
Yes.
So for those early 2000 kids, AMV Hell 3 was like an hour and 40 minutes long. And picture. I will never forget AMV Hell 3 with Hamtaro, and it had Disturbed. All the people in the left wing, rock! And all the people in the right wing, rock! And all the people in the underground, rock! So I will always remember Hamtaro and Disturbed for that, unfortunately. But that's a little side. But no, Peter Cullen, though, like, he is, in many ways, we talked a couple weeks ago about Kevin Conroy and, like, how he is the iconic Batman. Peter Cullen is another one of those like iconic voices that I will never forget because just like you said, like he was able to take something like Hamtaro and make it sound like a must-see epic adventure. And the dude is just incredible.
And Toonami was meta in the sense of like, yeah, they were advertising Hamtaro and everything.
Yeah.
But if you watch the opening bump for like the opening for Hamtaro, Tom literally sits down, turns on the TV, watches a little bit of it, and is just confused as to why it's on his show.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Well, I guess they are kind of cute."
Yeah.
And then they let the whole thing roll.
Yeah. And it's pretty great because like there's so much about Toonami we haven't talked about, right?
Video games that I bought because of it.
The video game reviews was something I was going to bring up, but yeah, like for those who don't know, like Tom would sit down and like do video game reviews. What's the one where you just roll like a big ball? What's that called?
Katamari Damacy.
Katamari Damacy.
I own all of them.
I don't think anyone in the United States would have picked up that game if it wasn't for Tom's reviews. Let's be honest. Like, that is not a game, especially at that time, that would have appealed to an American audience. But because Tom did it, and he demonstrated gameplay on Toonami, like, it got a foothold here in the United States. And you will never convince me otherwise. I don't have, like, data. That is a gut feeling, 100% no research, full disclaimer. We don't do research on this podcast. But my god, like that is like one of the prime examples of like a video game that I never would have heard of if it wasn't for Toonami.
It
Like
was so niche.
it was, and yet it's a really fun game. Um,
Yeah, I know. I own
really,
all of them.
it's a simple concept but a fun game. So if you think we're making fun of it, we're not. Like he legitimately owns all of them. I've
Yeah.
played like
Uh,
two of the games and they're both great.
if you have a
Um,
Nintendo Switch, there is a version for the Switch.
yes.
Get it.
So go check it
It's
out.
great.
It's a simple concept, but it works.
Hmm.
And the last thing, to kind of wrap up just my own personal, because for those that don't know, I have battled depression since I was 15. So, I have mental health struggles, long story short. And one of the things that Samurai sent me over the years, some of his things he sent me have aged better than others, but the one that I replay almost every year is one of Tom's speeches. And for those that don't know, Tom has occasionally done speeches where he talks about important events, whether it's, something social or like based on equality or,
Hmm.
whatever it might be, real world events.
Dude, they straight up did Black Lives Matter
Yeah,
just to show you like how deep they can get.
yeah. And, you know, the one that always stands out to me, the Black Lives Matter one is a great, like, recent example,
Hmm.
but Fall Down 7, Get Up 8.
Yes.
Um, it's, and for those that don't know, what with these speeches, what they often do is that they'll have, like, Stephen J. Bloom and Tom narrate this speech, and
Hmm.
then they'll intercut it with, like, shows that they have the right to.
Yeah.
So, like, the Fall Down 7 at the time, Dead Man Wonderland was airing, so they have, like, a clip of that. They have
Hmm.
Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop in there, because they always get the rights to Cowboy Bebop. Um, and, several others, and it's just, but it's a really inspirational speech. If you haven't seen it, it's a personal favorite of mine. I have recited it, I think, 6 times already on my stream, and for those that don't know, I haven't even celebrated 2 years yet, so, like, I talk about mental health a lot on my stream, but it's a very important video to me, and Samurai was the one who sent it to me. So again, Samurai, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it, because
Absolutely, man.
to this
I
day, I still, if I'm not feeling good, I bring that up
it
and I listen to it. So,
yeah, no, that one was a deep one. I still listen to that. Like I
mhm.
know I'll get into my nostalgia one, and like I said earlier, Dreams
Yeah,
was
Dreams is, oh, it's an amazing one too.
it's my favorite AMV,
Hmm.
and the second one I feel like was specifically talking to me,
Hmm.
because in the second one, they kind of continue off from
Yeah,
Dreams,
from the original. Yeah,
and yeah, and they talk about like maybe things didn't go exactly how you planned it, and very inspirational.
yeah,
But at the end, it says it echoes something from the first one, and it basically just says it's all as if you were 12 again. And when that one debuted, I was 12.
yeah, yeah,
Like, and for people who don't know, like one of my mini names back then was derived from Toonami. Like there was a lot of times where I felt Toonami was talking to me, just
yeah.
because like, hey Toonami faithful, I was just like, that's my name,
Yeah, so he
Toonami
literally
faithful.
had the Toonami Faithful name for a long time.
Hmm.
I think you still use it sparingly,
Yeah, I still use it sparingly.
but it's not your main handle anymore.
Mm-mm.
But I think, and that's a really good note. I think to kind of wrap up, we've been going about an hour 15, but I think it really does show like just what impact Toonami had on you, and then of course I've already shared my story, but
Yeah,
it
yep.
I don't really think, again, we could probably go for another like 45 minutes
Oh
if we
dear
wanted
God,
to.
if you wanted a deep dive, I could do a 2 hour series. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So I mean, hey, maybe we will. Maybe we'll make it a kind of recurring thing. Maybe we'll do that in the future. But Tsunami is, it's something that, it influenced us as kids. It still to this day is influencing us as adults. That Black Lives Matter speech, I think at a time when, you know, I wasn't sure how to express my support. I think Toonami did a really good job of like summarizing why it mattered and why it was important.
Mm-hmm.
especially in the face of those counter groups like All Lives Matter, which to me is like the biggest joke on the planet. But that's another topic. And so even to this day, Toonami is still influencing me. And like I said, I still pull up that Fall Down 7, Get Up 8,
Mm-hmm.
video. Every I feel like I watch it maybe like every like 3 or 4 months. Because it means that much to me.
I'm glad you really got a lot out of that one,
Yeah.
because uh, that's a very good one. And anyone who, if you're ever feeling down, watch it.
Yeah.
Inspirational.
And dream
Uh,
and the dreams ones too. Like,
mm-hmm,
Fall Down 7 is more like dealing with failure.
mm-hmm,
Dreams is, as the title implies, is more of like, planning for your future, you know.
mm-hmm.
It's more inspirational in that regard.
And
Um
in all these AMVs, there's usually a centered anime that's about it. Like, uh, what Space is the Place was mostly Gundam Wing. Dreams,
mhm.
funny enough, just happens to be Outlaw Star.
Yeah, Outlaw Star. Yeah, Fall Down 7 I think is more of a mix like I said. It has clips from a
Hmm.
bunch of different because it's like demonstrating, like
A lot of the voice clips though were from Dead Man Wonderland.
yeah, that is
Like,
true. Dead Man
like,
Wonderland I think was the primary on that one. Um
hmm
but again, it's I don't think we can say enough about Toonami and like how remarkable it is that it's still around. Um Literally got canceled and brought back. Um
it grew up with us.
yeah,
I
and
mean, it's on Adult Swim.
yeah, and Stephen J. Bloom, to this day, is your favorite voice actor. He's
Hmm.
in my top 5. It's not even that.
Someone told Stephen Bloom that he had practically raised them,
Uh huh.
because you know just being the voice of Toonami and whatnot.
Yeah, for at this point, what he took over in like 2000, so 22 years off and on.
Yeah, and so he took over from 2000 to, and yeah, from 2000 on, yeah.
Yeah.
And his response to that was, "I'm sorry."
Ah,
he, he's just like, yeah, no, I don't know if he knows just
I think
how many people.
I think he does. I know what you're thinking, and I really do think he does. I just think it's
Mm-hmm,
Stephen J. Bloom is one of the most self-aware celebrities I've ever seen. Like, I don't
mm-hmm,
follow many celebrities online. Stephen J. Bloom is one of them, and he is among one of the most self-aware, like, as for what his impact is and like what he can do and what a difference he can make. The
mm-hmm.
only other celebrity I can really say who's consistently done that I've seen is Weird Al Yankovic, and they're two very different individuals, but like
Right.
again, like he's a gem of a human being, and I think I'm sorry is about the best approach because the implication is if Stephen J. Bloom's Tom raised them, he wasn't really being raised by the people who should have been doing it. So I think
Yeah,
that's what he's referring to. But
yeah.
he's
uh,
he's very self aware, and we've told this story before, but like he is like legitimately one of the chillest dudes on the planet. He has to be because you've met
oh,
him,
dude,
and
many times
yeah,
there was a time. There was a time when I went to a concert and he was there.
uh huh.
It was the Silent Hill band,
Oh, there you
and
go. Yep.
he
That's
was.
another samuraiism, by the way. Love Silent Hill. Just
Oh
FYI.
yeah, oh yeah. It was a Silent Hill band, but yeah, he was just cool. Like, he was with the crowd. He wasn't backstage or anything. No, he was with the crowd,
Yeah.
just hanging out with them and rocking with them and everything. Oh, dude, it was great.
There you go. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up here. We've gone about an hour 20 minutes. And again, we still have so much we didn't cover. But
Oh,
Samurai, I definitely feel one day. How cool would it be if we could get Stephen J. Bloom on here one day? What if?
uh,
Right?
oh,
What
dude,
if?
that that would be a dream right
Yeah.
there.
Hey, I mean, we got Chad James. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah, we did.
So we can get Chad. I think we could get Stephen J. Blum. I think we could.
I agree.
Yeah. But one day. But anyway, again, thank you all very much for listening. Want to let you guys know we're probably going to take a break from publishing episodes. If not after this episode, then probably after the next one. With the holidays and everything, recording is going to be kind of hard, and we'd like to take some time to put some episodes in the can. Make sure that we don't miss. We had a series of missed weeks due to technical problems and scheduling. So ideally, I don't know how long the break is going to be, but I just want to let you guys know that this might be the last episode for a little while. We might do episode 22. I'm not sure, but we're going to take a short hiatus, and we'll come back with some new episodes. We'll resume our Lost in the MCU series. Probably talk about some other stuff. We'll probably maybe talk Silent Hill. That'll probably be a topic. We'll probably talk wrestling at some point, and just some plans for the future. So definitely also want to talk DC animated. And at some point, we're hoping to get some of the guests we had come in during October come back. So got a lot planned coming up for the next year, but just wanted to give you guys a heads up.
Maybe one day I'll tell them how I got locked inside Comic-Con.
Oh, that's a good way to end this. So on that note, we're going to end with that teaser. But again, my name is Shenzo the Lost. That's SamuraiNoodlez. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we will see you all maybe next week. Maybe not. See you soon.